There is incredible evidence in ancient art, whether in paintings, objects, and engravings, scattered throughout the world, of UFO sightings and encounters that have left their mark at different times in history. This evidence is supported by accounts from a bygone era that describe in great detail unusual events that, with the knowledge we have today, we would classify as UFO events. In the Old Testament and in other sacred texts, mention is made of objects that cross the sky, which took names such as whirlwind, chariot of fire, cloud, flaming wheel, or simply it was considered as the presence of the divinity, depending on the belief that the witnesses had. Thus we can read, "Then Yahweh brought a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the fish's belly 3 days and 3 nights. Or the rapture of the prophet Elijah. They were walking and talking when suddenly a chariot of fire with horses of fire separated them, and Elijah went up to heaven in the midst of a whirlwind. Elisha looked up and cried out, 'My father, my father, my father, chariot and driving force of Israel,' but he did not see him again." To this we must add the testimonies collected in the writings of the time of well-known historical figures who witnessed events related to flying objects and lights in the sky, as is the case of Christopher Columbus, Alexander the Great, Plutarch, Flavius Josephus, Pliny the Elder, Seneca, or Marcus Tullius Cicero, among others. Thus Cicero wrote, "Many are the times that our Senate asked the Decembers to consult the oracles, when 2 suns were seen, or when 3 moons appeared and flames of fire were observed in the sky. Or on that other occasion, when the sun rose at night, while noises were heard in the sky, when the cloud itself seemed to burst and strange globes were observed in the sky." Or also Flavius Josephus, historian of the 1st century, relates the following. "On May 21st, a demonic phantom of incredible magnitude, before twilight there appeared in the air, from all over the country, chariots and armed men that moved among the clouds and circled the city. But much more incredible are the stories about terrible battles that were fought in the sky, and that were recorded by the terrified witnesses of the time who did not know what was happening." The UFO battle over Genova. In August 1608, the inhabitants of southern France and northwest Italy experienced the mysterious appearance of several flying ships, as recorded in a chronicle written by Pierre Menir in French, entitled "Discourses of the Terrible and Frightful Signs Appeared over the Sea of Genoa," which narrates the following. "At the beginning of the month of August, in the year 1608, over the Sea of Genoa, were seen the most horrible signs that, from the memory of man, have ever been spoken or written of. Some having human form with arms that seemed to be covered with scales, and in each of their hands they carried 2 horrible flying serpents that coiled around their arms, emerging apparently from the height of their navels, flying high above the sea and uttering horrible screams, which was altogether frightful, and sometimes they plunged into the waters to emerge again at a farther distance. Their screams were so frightful that several people fell ill from the fear they suffered. Some figures were seen in the shape of women. Others had the body similar to the human body, all covered with scales, but with the head in the form of a dragon." It should be remembered that to describe unknown events, more familiar and known references are sought. We will not see references to flying saucers or spaceships, but descriptions more in keeping with each era. For example, it is very likely that the screams to which they refer were a way of describing the sounds emitted by those flying objects. The men of the time acted as follows. The lordship ordered to fire some cannons to try to drive them out of the place, and about 800 cannon shots were fired at them, but in vain, as they did not seem to be missed in any way. And the account continues, describing what seems to be a confrontation between those flying ships. On the 15th day of August, there appeared upon the said sea, from the port of Genoa, 3 chariots drawn, each by 6 fiery figures that looked like dragons. And the said carriages marched in opposite directions from one another and dragged by the flaming figures with their serpents, continuing with their frightful cries and approaching very near Genoa. So much so that the spectators, at least the greater part, fled in fright, fearing the effects of such prodigies. But when they had made 3 times the course along the harbor, after uttering cries so potent with noise that they made the surrounding mountains tremble, they were all lost in the sea, and since then were neither seen nor heard of. If we take as true the events narrated here, it would be one of the most important UFO events of antiquity. A terrifying event for those people who did not know its true nature. The UFO battle over Nuremberg. In Germany, on April 14, 1561, in the city of Nuremberg, a mysterious event occurred in the sky, which kept all its inhabitants in suspense. This event was recorded on a leaflet, made in wood by the artist Hans Glaser, and is preserved in the Library of Zurich. The narrative is accompanied by an illustration describing what happened. This horrifying apparition was seen by many people, male and female. The objects that flew over the city are described as annular discs or blood red, bluish and black spheres. They were close to the sun. They were placed 3, for example, in a row, sometimes 4 in a square, and also some alone, and some blood-colored crosses have also been seen among these spheres. There were also 2 big tubes, in which small and big tubes there were 3 by 3, also 4 by 4 and more spheres. And they all began to fight each other. The phenomenon lasted about an hour. Then everything fell to the earth from the sky as if everything was burning, and with great vapor disappeared little by little. Similar facts are reported in another leaflet, written by Samuel Coccius, which describes events that took place in the city of Basel, Switzerland, on August 7, 1566. At the moment of sunrise, many black spheres were seen in the air moving towards the sun with great speed and celerity, and also turning against each other. They fought against each other, taking some red and fiery ones that were then consumed and dissolved. It is evident that something happened over the sky of Nuremberg and Basel that terrified the population. However, we cannot know with certainty what it was, since the interpretation was given according to what was known at that time. Battles between Vimanas. Of all the stories about battles in the sky by these strange flying objects, perhaps the ones that offer the most detailed and complete description are the sacred Hindu texts that describe vehicles capable of flying, called Vimanas, and weapons as powerful as those that exist today. In the text of the Mahabharata, a Sanskrit word that translates as Great War, terrible battles of gods in ancient times that made use of this advanced technology are described. The gods traveled in Vimanas, described as metallic chariots that sailed through the air. Their occupants could travel great distances in an instant and even reach other planets. The Ramayana describes aerial battles with lightning-like missiles capable of destroying crops and turning them into a wasteland. A smoke and flames as bright as 10,000 suns. The Vimanas have the shape of a sphere and sailed through the air, raising a strong wind. Men aboard the Vimanas could thus cover great distances in a surprisingly short space of time. For the man who drove did so at will, flying up and down, forward and backward. These references are qualified as myths and legends of the Hindu religion, but are they really? If we examine these stories, we see that they are incredibly similar. They all describe flying ships fighting each other. All these historical writings show that in the past there were beings with very advanced technology that intervened in the destiny of mankind. The question is, where are they now?